Today we're going to be comparing three Toyota icons, the 3rd generation Tacoma, the FJ Cruiser, and the 5th generation 4Runner. So we'll start off with a quick overview of the three vehicles. First off, the Tacoma, which was first introduced in 1995 and is now in its 3rd generation with an all-new model for 2016. This is a 2016 TRD off-road. It's available in a number of different trim packages beyond this. For 2016, they dropped the standard regular cab model, and you can only get it with either an access cab and a 6-foot bed, or this double cab model with either a 5.5-foot short bed or the 6-foot long bed that we've got here. A number of modifications that I've made to my truck. I'll go over those real quick. We've got the TRD Pro faux grille here, TRD Sport hood with the hood scoop. I've also got a hidden winch behind the front bumper. The truck is lifted about 2 inches with an Icon Stage 2 lift. At the rear, I've got the Adeleaf as well as a 1-inch Toyota block. VTX Rogue wheels with a -10 offset in black, and we've got the Goodyear Wrangler Duratrax in a 285/70 R17. Up top, we've got the Yakima roof rack, and then on the back, we've got the Toyota tonneau cover with KB Voodoo bed bars. The FJ Cruiser was first introduced in 2007, was essentially unchanged over the years. They did offer it in a Trail Teams package for a number of those years, giving you unique color options. Mine's just the standard model. Again, has been modified quite heavily. I've got roughly a 2-inch lift here with Bilstein 6112 shocks in the front and Bilstein 5100s in the rear. We've got a set of Goodyear Wrangler Duratrax once again, and a 295/70 R17 tire, and we've got the SCS SR8 wheels. Once again, we've also got a hidden winch here, a rough country winch with a hidden winch mount specialist winch mount. Up top, we've got the Baja rack OEM roof basket, and then coming around back, we've got the Gobi ladder. Number of other small modifications, and then last but not least, we've got the 5th generation 4Runner, which was introduced for 2010. Once again, we saw a number of changes over the years, the most major updates being in 2014, where certain models get the revised front end as well as revised tail lights, few revisions to the interior, and we also saw a major update for 2020. Once again, I've made a number of modifications here. It's got about an 1.5-inch lift with Bilstein 5100s in the front and rear. Got the C4 Fab rock sliders here, and then another set of Goodyear Wrangler Duratrax, this time in a 285/70 R17, and we've got the SCS BR6 wheels. So, quick overview on the three vehicles. Now we'll get into the details. All three of these vehicles are incredibly capable off-road. They're all body-on-frame construction, and the 4Runner and the FJ Cruiser are actually based on the same platform, which is also shared with the Lexus GX. All three vehicles are also available with a locking rear differential and a multi-terrain select system with crawl control. With the 4Runner and the FJ Cruiser, you also get a standard Toyota 8-track traction control system, which works a little bit like a locking differential. When it's activated, if the vehicle detects excessive wheel spin, it's able to apply the brakes to transfer power to the other side to help you get out of sticky situations. The Tacoma does have the slight disadvantage in terms of ground clearance at 9.4 inches compared with the standard 9.6 inches that you get on the FJ Cruiser and the 4Runner. The main differences between these three comes down to your front approach, breakover, and rear departure angle. And then I think also the fact that the Tacoma is a pickup, it's lighter in the back, and so that may affect your overall traction when you're on loose ground. Front approach angle basically tells you how well the vehicle can go from, say, flat ground to a steep slope without scraping at the front end. On the Tacoma, you've got the disadvantage here at 32 degrees. The 4Runner falls in the middle at 33 degrees. And then the FJ Cruiser has the advantage at 34 degrees. Next, we've got breakover angle, which tells us how well you can essentially climb over objects. It's a combination of your ground clearance and your wheelbase. Double cab long bed is not going to be the best here, but most Tacomas are the access cab or the double cab short bed. On those models, it's going to be 21 degrees, which is actually slightly better than what you've got on the 4Runner, sitting at 20 degrees. Although the FJ Cruiser has the advantage here with the shortest wheelbase, basically crushing the other two at 27.4 degrees for its breakover angle. And then last but not least, we've got the rear departure angle, which is kind of like your front approach angle, but at the back of the vehicle. Let's say that you're going down a really steep slope, and then you go onto flat ground, or likewise go from flat ground to a steep slope? Are you going to scrape at the back of the vehicle on your rear fender and rear bumper? Well, the Tacoma's got the disadvantage here at 23.5 degrees. That's compared to 26 degrees on the 4Runner. And once again, the FJ's got the advantage with a rear departure of 30 degrees. Now, honestly, all three of these vehicles are incredibly capable off-road. Very few drivers are going to put any of them to the test to the point where they're going to really find that the vehicles struggle at all. But if we had to rate them, I'd say the Tacoma falls into that third position, mostly because the front approach, rear departure angle, it's got a slight disadvantage with that breakover, and it doesn't have the A-track traction control system that we get with the FJ and the 4Runner. The 4Runner is great off-road, but the FJ Cruiser does have this slight advantage, primarily due to that wheelbase, and then of course it does have a better front approach and rear departure angle. So the Tacoma falls in third, the 4Runner in second, and the FJ Cruiser is the winner here. The FJ Cruiser has a unique look and feel with a touch of retro that helps it to stand out. Material quality is pretty good overall, and although ergonomics aren't great, they're excusable because of the unique design. The biggest downside of the FJ is that features are very limited, and there isn't much in the way of luxury or tech upgrades. Blind spots are of course also highly present, although excusable because of the unique design. The Tacoma is the most recent vehicle release of the three, and as a result has the most modern look and the best available features. But it also feels the cheapest of the three with material quality that lags. It's got more hard plastics, vinyls, and cheap fabric on the seats, which aren't particularly comfortable. The Limited and the Pro models see some improvements in materials, and newer models were also available with leather seating that's a step up. It's a shame that the overall material quality isn't better though, because the design itself is really good. Despite the nicer feel to the FJ interior, the Tacoma has the advantage here due to its number of available features. The 4Runner has the nicest interior of the three models. Although a somewhat dated design when compared with the Tacoma, material quality is a step above and has a higher level of fit and finish than the other two. It's also available in a wide range of trim packages and can be configured to offer many of the same features and functions that you get on the Tacoma. You also see that it's the most spacious in the rear seat of the three models, and it's the most comfortable. The third generation Tacoma has either a 2.7 liter 4-cylinder or this 3.5 liter 6-cylinder, and it's offered in rear-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. With the 2.7, you get 159 horsepower and 180 pound-feet of torque, paired to either a 5-speed manual transmission or a 6-speed automatic, although the manual transmission has been dropped in more recent years. With that engine, you're going to see your 0-60 time of about 10.2 seconds, max tow capacity of 3,500 pounds, and fuel economy varying from 19 to 20 miles per gallon in the city to 22 to 23 miles per gallon on the highway. With the 3.5, you get 278 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque, paired to either a 6-speed automatic or 6-speed manual transmission. 0-60 time is 7.8 seconds, and max tow capacity is 6,800 pounds, with fuel economy varying from 17 to 18 miles per gallon in the city and 20 to 24 miles per gallon on the highway. The FJ Cruiser and the 4Runner both have a 4-liter V6, essentially the same powertrain, but performance specs are a little bit different between the two models. When the FJ Cruiser was first introduced, it had single variable valve timing and offered 239 horsepower and 278 pound-feet of torque. In 2010, it gets dual variable valve timing, and those numbers are revised to 259 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque, and then they revise again slightly in 2011 to 260 horsepower and 271 pound-feet of torque. With the FJ Cruiser, you can get it with either a 5-speed automatic or 6-speed manual transmission, and it is available in either rear-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. Models equipped with the 6-speed manual have a full-time 4-wheel drive system, whereas on the automatic you get a part-time 4-wheel drive system. 0 to 60 time is about 7.3 seconds, max tow capacity is 5,000 pounds, and fuel economy varies from 15 to 17 miles per gallon in the city and 19 to 22 miles per gallon on the highway. With the 4Runner, when it was first introduced, it was offered with either a 2.7 liter 4-cylinder or this 4-liter V6. The 2.7 only lasted a single year, so it's a very rare powertrain for these 5th generation 4Runners. this 4-liter V6 is the much more common option. It's got 270 horsepower and 278 pound-feet of torque, and it's paired to a 5-speed automatic transmission. Good for a 0 to 60 time of 7.8 seconds, max tow capacity of 5,000 pounds. With 4-wheel drive, you're going to see 17 miles per gallon in the city and 20 miles per gallon on the highway. And with rear-wheel drive models, you'll see a 1 mile per gallon bump. So between the 3 models, the Tacoma is my least favorite. It's pretty much common knowledge that the automatic transmissions on these 3rd generation Tacomas are less than ideal. They search around a lot when you're at highway speeds. When you take it out of park, it has a tendency to lurch forward, and it's just not the smoothest transmission, and it kind of affects the overall performance of the engine. I think that with a manual transmission, you're going to be a little bit more pleased, but it's kind of accepted that the 4-liter V6 is the preferred powertrain option. And so the FJ Cruiser and the 4Runner are essentially a tie here. The performance specs are a little bit different between the two, but they're essentially the same. Great powertrain in both of these vehicles. Not to say that it's a terrible powertrain in the Tacoma, but the 4-liter V6 is definitely preferable. Next up, let's talk about utility. In terms of tow capacity, the Tacoma does have the advantage, maxing out at 6,800 pounds, as opposed to the 5,000 pounds that you get on the 2 SUVs. In terms of interior space, with the double cab model, legroom isn't terrible for just passengers, but it's not especially spacious either. And if you're putting car seats in the back, it's pretty tight. With a front-facing car seat, you're going to have very limited legroom for that child. And then with a rear-facing car seat, it forces the seats to be slid up quite a bit to the point where it's not going to be very comfortable unless you're super short. With the FJ Cruiser, we've of course got the suicide doors, which complicates your utility use a little bit. It's harder to get in and out of the vehicle. I will say that for being a suicide door, you'd expect these rear seats to be very tight. They're not as bad as you would expect. I would say they're a little tighter than the Tacoma. And car seats will fit, but once again, it's kind of a tight fit. And the most challenging part about car seats is trying to get a child in or out when you've got a rear-facing seat is very hard with this tight opening. And then coming around to the back, even though the FJ Cruiser is rather small, cargo space is actually quite good back here. Surprising how much room you've got. And then the seats also fold down in a 60-40 split to further increase that area. And then on the 4Runner, this definitely has the best rear seat. You can see that it's got ample legroom. With those car seats, no trouble fitting them either front or rear facing. And then coming around back, once again, we've got a lot of cargo space. Even better than what we had in the FJ Cruiser. And then the other cool thing about the 4Runner is that we've got an available 3rd row seat on some models. So this drops into the floor. Got a little seat that pulls up here on the bottom. These seats are not particularly spacious, but still nice to be able to increase that seating capacity to 7. And then just pull this lever here, and we can drop the seats back down into the floorboards. So in terms of utility, it's really going to come down to what your needs are, whether your needs are off-road capability, which we've got with the FJ Cruiser, transporting passengers, which we've got with the 4Runner, and then transporting cargo or pulling, which we've got with the Tacoma. So in terms of utility, I'd say the Tacoma does have the advantage here, falling into that #1 spot. The 4Runner once again sits in the middle, and the FJ Cruiser sits in that 3rd position. In terms of driving characteristics, I put the FJ Cruiser in the #3 position. It's not terrible, it's actually fairly good for the type of vehicle that it is, but it doesn't compete with the Tacoma or the 4Runner. Steering feel is fairly good, brake feel is all right. The 4-liter V6 provides adequate power, and the vehicle is actually fairly smooth when you're driving in straight lines. Where it starts to fall short is when it comes to handling. When you're driving on windy roads, driving at highway speeds, if it's really windy outside, and the worst of all is driving on snowy or icy highways. It can be downright scary in those situations. I think this mostly comes down to the short wheelbase and the high center of gravity, which is further exacerbated when you lift the vehicle like I've done and like many other FJ Cruiser owners have done. And the handling really just takes the fun out of the vehicle when you're driving on those really snowy and icy roads. Even when I'm on back roads driving in the snow and ice, the traction control system just drives me crazy. You know, it's constantly beeping, trying to self-correct. Even when you turn it off, it's trying to do things that you don't really need it to do. So, you know, for a very off-road capable vehicle, I would say that, you know, it's a quiet, smooth, comfortable vehicle in general. but that handling is really bad, especially in those snowy and icy conditions. The Tacoma falls into the number 2 position when it comes to driving characteristics. It's pretty good overall, but it does have some drawbacks. Obviously, the interior is quite nice. It's got a good level of luxury and tech features, great visibility, and just overall, the truck feels very comfortable to drive, and it's got great handling. I will say that it's a little bit antiquated in some capacities. The suspension at the rear is leaf springs, while many other trucks have gone to coil spring suspensions. So it feels stiffer, not as smooth as other trucks that are out there. We also have drum brakes at the rear, which feel very inadequate. The braking is not very good in these Tacomas. And then I also mentioned that the transmission on these automatics is less than desirable. When you're shifting out of park, it has this tendency to want to lurch forward. When you're driving at highway speeds, going up steep grades, or passing vehicles, it doesn't feel like it's in the right gear all the time. A lot of times it's searching around between gears, and it just doesn't feel like it's programmed correctly or well suited for this engine. But beyond those downsides, the Tacoma is pretty nice to drive. It's just not as good as the 4Runner. And once again, the 4Runner is the winner here when it comes to driving characteristics. It's much nicer to drive than the FJ and the Tacoma. We get really good visibility, a nice commanding driving position, a great interior that's got a nice feel to it, good level of options and features. It's very spacious inside, and it just offers the smoothest ride. It's very comfortable, it's composed. It's still body-on-frame construction with a high center of gravity, so like the FJ and the Tacoma, it's not amazing when it comes to overall handling, but it is better than those other 2 models, and without a doubt, this is the best driving of the 3 vehicles. So all 3 of these vehicles are great in their own rights. They've got different advantages and disadvantages, but scoring against the criteria that we discussed today, the FJ Cruiser would fall into the number 3 position. It is the most off-road capable, and it certainly offers the most unique, one-of-a-kind styling of the trio. But unless those are the 2 things that you're looking for in the vehicle, you're probably better off with either the Tacoma or the 4Runner. The Tacoma falls into that number 2 spot, edging out the FJ Cruiser in terms of utility, driving characteristics, and it's got a more feature-rich interior. Certainly this is the route to go if you need a pickup, since the other 2 are SUVs, but unless you need a pickup, I would recommend going with the 4Runner. Now this shouldn't come as a surprise. The 4Runner is the clear choice here. I've done side-by-side comparisons with the FJ and the 4Runner, as well as the Tacoma and the 4Runner, and the 4Runner has come out tops both times. So once again, it's the winner here. It's got the nicest interior, the nicest ride quality. It's got a great powertrain. Still offers a lot of utility and off-road capability. So the 4Runner would be my recommendation unless you're looking for premier off-road capability or the utility of a pickup. Again, all 3 vehicles are great. I just think that the 4Runner is the best of the trio. If you guys have any comments or questions or feedback, I'd love to get those in this section below. And for more Toyota videos, be sure to subscribe. In the meantime, thanks for watching.